Hi, this is day number 123 in the Art Life video blog, and I'm Hilarie Couture, and I'm an artist.
I'm Jacob Wolf. Thank you, Hilarie, for having me here.
Jacob?
Do you want to just tell us just a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I started drawing when I was about 2 years old, and my subjects were my dad's Playboy magazines. I drew clothes on them and purple crayon, and then he started hiding them, but he said he only had them for the articles, of course.
Of course.
So
that's really funny. So you were censoring nudity at a young age.
I guess. I thought they needed clothes, so I made clothes.
What are they
for
doing?
them.
Why don't they have clothes on?
Yeah, then I started, that was kind of the beginnings, and I started drawing ballet dancers and horses, and then I thought maybe I was dig on my past life or something at a young age.
So at a early age, what inspired you to start drawing?
I think, I came from a broken home, and I think that I found my solace in my art, and I guess, it was my only time of peace. I would go in my closet, and I'd sit in my closet, and at that time it was the early 60s, and I was sort of influenced by the Sad-Eye Kids that Keane painted, and now it became a movie and everybody knows about it, but I think that's what all my people look like, were the Sad-Eye Kids.
Wow.
And, yeah, so that's how I kind of started, and that was my inspiration, and I always drew, made the bulletin boards in grade school for my teachers, and drew paper dolls for all the kids. And
so you took art classes at a young age?
Well, it was just elementary school. It wasn't any specific art class, but you had art in school, and that was what I seemed to like to do the most. I always got good grades in art, and the teachers would write that I did beautiful artwork, but I always bothered my neighbors by talking during study periods. So I always had the gift of gab, but anyway.
So how did other people react to your art when you were first starting out?
I think, I was encouraged. A lot of people said that I drew pretty pictures, but I never really was encouraged to become an artist. That was something that was sort of a latent thing, because in my generation it was always that you had to make a living, and so it was most important to find a good job and go to college and get the degree and pursue making a living.
So did you put the art aside for a while?
Well, what happened was I went to college. I got a scholarship at Washington University for medical illustration, and that was going to be my pursuit. And my first year, it was all these core classes that didn't have anything to do with art, English and physics and economics and all this stuff. And I had one drawing and one design class. And I absolutely hated school because I wasn't doing art, I was doing all this other stuff. So I was at a party, and this is, early 70s, and talking to some people, and I ended up hitchhiking out to San Francisco one night and leaving school and everything. And I met a Buddhist woman that made puka shell necklaces on the streets in San Francisco, and she said, well, you're artistic, you should, do something in art and, get a street license. And so the next day I went down to the city and got my street artist license and started drawing portraits that looked like Sad-Eye Kids.
Wow.
Because that's really the only education I had.
How old were you when you did this?
I was like 18. I went to 1 year of college and then quit school and did this crazy street artist life. And I guess a pretty profound time was I was trying to draw portraits on the streets, and they were really horrible. I mean, like I said, they all look like the Sad-Eye Kids. And this woman came up to me and said, can I draw your portrait? And I thought, well, sure, why not? So I sat for her, and it was the most beautiful charcoal portrait I'd ever seen. And she said, well, I'm an artist in New Orleans, and if you really want to get good, you need to move to New Orleans and draw there. And so within a couple weeks, I was packed up and on my way to New Orleans, and I lived there for 2 years and drew, and my work did get better.
What about New Orleans made your work better?
Just that there was such a group of talented people that were serious artists. There were so many. I mean, there were a lot of schlocky people too, but the ones that I sought out were really committed to doing good art and we would get together weekly and have life drawing sessions and things like that. And those were the people that I gravitated to. And so I think just being in that process kind of helped my own work get better.
So you were in New Orleans for 2 years?
Mm-hmm. 2 years there, and I met this guy, and he and I, and he was gay. I mean, it wasn't any kind of relationship thing, but we decided that we were going to hit the streets and travel up the East Coast and do portraits at beach boardwalks and all this stuff because he liked doing portraits as well. And so we went on our journey, but he left me in DC. He found somebody he wanted to connect with there. And then our plan was to go up to New York. And so I actually did end up making it to New York and lived in the Village for a while in New York and drew portraits on the streets there.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
What was your time like in New York?
It was hard.
Yeah.
I lived in a rent control place. It was this little loft, and I lived with another woman, and she was an artist as well. And the first day I got there, my car was vandalized, and you know, at that time you had to park on different sides of the street every day. Like you moved it from one side to the other, and one day I didn't, and the car got towed, and it just seemed like I kept getting myself into all these hassles, and it was tough. I think I did it for about 8 months, and I said, "Nah, I'm done with this." And so then my thing was, it was during the Republican convention in 1976, I believe, and I thought, well, I'm just going to travel to the conventions and try to do Congress people and stuff like that. And so I did, went to Kansas City and did a few portraits there, and then I'm from Omaha, Nebraska, so once I was in Kansas City, I thought, well, I'm going to go home and see the family and check in, because nobody had heard from me in about 2 years. And
wow.
So I did that, and I showed up on my mom's doorsteps, and she said, well, you can't stay here. And life was different and difficult, but I ended up staying in Omaha for a brief time then and trying to draw portraits on the streets there, where in the early 70s it was very conservative in Omaha, Nebraska, and nobody was doing that. And I went down to the old Market District, which was in the downtown area, and at that time there were a few head shops and record stores and warehouses, but they were just on the verge of kind of turning into this interesting artistic area. And so I set up my easel there, and what I would do to get business was I would find somebody that was inspiring to draw, and I would ask them to sit for a portrait, and they would sit, and then people would gather around, and it would usually get my day going for some income. And this one gal that I saw had carrot red hair, and it was cut in a China doll haircut, and she had a kimono on, and really intriguing looking woman. And I asked her if I could draw her portrait, and she looked at her watch and said, oh, I'd love to do that, but I don't have time right now. I gotta go do a haircut. And she exchanged numbers with me, and we got together, and we ended up, I drew her portrait, and she cut my hair into this beret haircut. It looked like I had a beret on my head. And she convinced me that I should go to beauty school. And she said, you know, you need to get a real job, and you're so creative and artistic, and this would be a good thing to do. So I ended up calling a school the next day and signing up for beauty school, and that was in 1978. And I did hair for about 40 years after that, and never did another piece of art until 3 years ago. So,
wow. So,
yeah.
40 years of cutting hair.
Pretty much, yeah.
And did you enjoy that?
I did. I mean, I loved the public contact. I loved being with people and, you know, being challenged to create a hairstyle on somebody's head. And cutting hair was kind of like doing a sculpture, because it was, you know, working with a form, a solid form that you had to turn into a shape. And I was good at it, and I really enjoyed color, because that was sort of like mixing paint in a way. In fact, I relate to that a lot now, you know, when I'm thinking about landscape and perspective, and it's kind of funny how I compare the two things, hair color to mixing paint, but it is kind of a similar concept. So
right on.
yeah.
So what was the catalyst that made you decide that you wanted to start painting again?
Oh, okay. Well, At age 55, I went back to college and got a degree in historic building preservation. And one of my classes was a mural class. It was wall finishes, and it wasn't mural, but it was a wall finish class. And our final project was to create a mural after we had a cubicle that we had to tear wallpaper off of, and then like replaster the wall, and then do some kind of a faux finish on the wall, and then a takeaway mural piece that was added to it. And so my takeaway mural was actually a diptych that I painted in the style of Maxfield Parrish, and I painted it in acrylic because I had never done oil painting yet. And it was a woman on a swing, and it was actually, it's probably under this painting because I kept I kept it for a long time. It was on a masonite board, the two pieces, and so as I was painting it, my instructor came up and he said, "You cut hair?" And I said, "Yes." And he says, "And you're a realtor?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "And you're an auctioneer?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "You've missed your calling." And at that point, I just kind of thought to myself, well, wait a minute, I'm still alive.
Right,
You know?
I haven't missed
I
nothing
haven't
yet.
missed my calling. I'm 55. I know, I'm not dead. I don't have a foot in the grave yet. But it was that moment that said to me, maybe I should be pursuing this, because he looked at my work and, he saw something in my work. And then right after that, I entered a competition that was local. I was living in West Virginia at the time. And it was for that mural, it was at the school, and I got second place for that. And then I also tried to get my art in as an emerging artist for an art show, and they would pay your booth rent if you were the emerging artist for that year, and I was accepted as the emerging artist. So I got to set up my booth and draw portraits the whole time I was there. And so it was kind of those two things. And then my husband, before I did this booth, had sat for me. I hadn't drawn, for almost 40 years. I did that mural, and then I had him sit for a portrait. And in about 35 minutes, I cranked it out in charcoal. And he said he didn't see the portrait until he got up to look at it. And he got tears in his eyes, and he said, "You should be doing your art." And, I felt like if what I do brings that kind of emotion to somebody, then this is really what I want to be doing. So I got some satisfaction out of making people feel good about their hair. But, and I get some satisfaction out of helping someone find the perfect house as a realtor.
It sounds like he was really proud of you, too.
I think he was. And him being a musician, he could understand the artistic value and the spirit of an artist. So.
Right on.
Yeah.
So you've been entering your works into competitions.
Yeah, I've been kind of naively trying to get it out there, I think,
What are some of the competitions that you've entered?
Well, locally there's a lot of art shows, and so I've put work into the Southwest Society of Washington Artists, and that's in Vancouver. And last year I got Best of Show with this painting right here, The Fragrant Flautist. And then I also entered this painting in a national show after I got some courage up after I won locally, and I thought, I'm going to try something nationally. And so I put it in the National Oil and Acrylic Painters Society show. It's called the Best of America 2014 last year, and I got Best People Painting Award for that painting.
That's incredible. So was this somebody that you knew?
He was actually playing the flute at Esther Short Park one day, and I saw him and I asked him if I could paint him. And he said he didn't mind, and he was just standing there playing. And so I took a picture of him. I didn't paint this one from life because it's awfully large, and it would have been a little difficult to paint that large, just in the park like that. But I took several pictures of him, and then he was standing in front of some roses. And so I kind of, indicated that there were roses in the background. But this is painted over one of my old paintings. This was part of the diptych that I did from that. because I kind of looked at them and thought, you know, I'm sort of beyond that now. I don't need that anymore. I took a picture of it, I documented it, so I know that I did it, and now I'm at a different level. So.
And it was a good transformation for that painting, apparently.
Yeah, it seemed to work out, and you know, sometimes when I really feel in tune with my work, they just happen quickly. It's like if I labor over something for a long time, it ends up not working out as well, and this one happened real fast. It was just one of those things, and I love when that happens.
Mm-hmm. So what are some other projects that you've been working on?
Well, I think about creating series now rather than just doing random paintings here and there, and I think I'm basically doing that because I want some gallery representation, and usually they want at least 20 paintings that fit a certain theme or genre or something like that. So along with my musicians, which this is part of that, I've been working on women with exotic animals, and I'm hoping to do a calendar, so I'll have 12 of those, and I have one that I've almost to completion at this point.
So this is a work in progress here, but it is very close to done.
Yeah.
So what was your inspiration with the animals?
Just, I don't know, it's something about just the wild side of a personality, and the exotic animal, and the relationship between humans and animal life, and being in an environment, and this model happens to do burlesque dancing, and I saw a picture of her in, a friend of mine shot some photos of her, and he was showing me some of them, and I saw this costume, and she came over here with this costume, and we went outside, and that's where I created this painting, was, you know, having her put that costume on, and she had the peacock feather tattoos on her back, and so, I mean, this was almost kind of conceived.
Made sense.
Yeah, it just made sense, and I love the colors, and then I just added the peacock to it, because I didn't have the peacock right there, but yeah.
This is a...
I just want to show off some more of your paintings.
Oh, okay. So this is a large one, a little over 2 feet by a little over 4 feet, I believe. And this was a series I did last year of women with flowers and, you know, tulle, and so this was part of it. But one of my muses here, she's posed for several of my paintings, and she had wonderful red hair. That was my inspiration, was her red hair, but I dressed her up and wrapped flower garlands around her and tulle, and we did a bunch of things with that. And I started this actually from life. I prefer to work from life, but when I don't have that opportunity, then I'll work from photos, or I'll document. I'll like to start out from life so that I can see the subtle changes in the tonalities of the skin and things like that. And then because photography tends to flatten out a form, and so you really don't see those nuances, you know,
right,
that you get from life. And then I don't know Photoshop and all that, which I need to get a class in it or something, but so a lot of the things that I do, you know, are done in my head, and then trying to portray it on the canvas. But I've heard that Elements is a good program for a beginner, so I'm going to try to look at that.
What are some of your... Well, I'm sorry. Actually, before I go on, where are you showing right now? What are some of the galleries that you're in?
Currently, I just have work at one gallery in Vancouver, and it's called Aurora, and I have 3 little landscape paintings there. It's not my love landscape. I love painting outside, and I love, excuse me, painting the person in the landscape, maybe doing something. But she said, I can't sell your pretty women. And so she doesn't want my pretty women. And so if you're a gallery and you want my pretty women, I'm available.
Right on. What are some of your aspirations or goals for the future?
I would say to continue to to show and enter contests and get some recognition and to continue to grow in my field. And I'm also offering workshops and classes now, and I just had a workshop here, my first one in oil painting portraits, and my students told me that I gave them so much knowledge. They were just so impressed. And
I'd be really interested to come to one of your classes because
Okay.
I have an interest in portraiture, and I'm not very good at it at all.
I bet I can pull the goodness
I
out
bet
of
you could. Some good direction. I'm a quick learner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was really good. I mean, because I could see the growth. It was exponential in 3 days from where they started to where they ended up, and that's real rewarding. So if I can help somebody find that, I've had some amazing opportunities here since I've been here with. You know, there's such a wealth of art, talented artists just locally, and I find it in Portland, you know, many of the artists are willing to share, and so I hope that I can follow in those footsteps and share my knowledge and help other people.
Definitely. I'd also be very interested to model for you.
Yeah.
I know we kind of discussed that a little bit, but we should definitely hook up a time.
Yeah, I would love to do that.
Right on.
Yeah, and something as I get to know you a little bit better, and then, you know, create the scene that fits with who you are.
Right.
And that would be really cool.
I mean, you can definitely see the personality of the people in your paintings. And I think a lot of that has to do with the facial expressions. Like I said, your faces are amazing. The detail and the expressions behind them are phenomenal. Like, you do amazing work.
Thank you.
But yeah, the personality definitely comes through, and the landscapes and backgrounds that you choose are helping that along as well. Just grade A. Good job. Really.
Thank you. They say that the more connected the artist is to the sitter, the more the artist's face is into the portrait. And I've had people say, "Is that you?" And clearly, you know, somebody has blue eyes, and I obviously don't have blue eyes, but they'll look at that painting and say, "Is that you?" And I think, well, how do they see me in that?
It's weird.
But I have noticed when I've looked at other people's work, I can see it more in other people's work. And so that's kind of interesting.
I just asked an artist the other day if, because she draws female figures, and I was like, are your ladies modeled after you? And she said, yes and no. She said she started drawing her mother, and she and her mother look alike, and after a while people started saying that she was drawing herself, and she's like, well, no, because basically her mother is a different archetype, like the more powerful, strong woman, and she said, I haven't reached that yet. I'm not. I don't know, it was just cool to see like little bits of her coming out in her drawings of somebody else.
Yeah, that's kind of how it works out. And it's because of your connection that you have to your sitter, or just anything that you're painting, you know, that your own personality comes through the brushes. So.
Definitely. Well, I told you a little bit about the gallery that I throw. The next one is on August 28th. It's called 4th Effin' Friday, because it's the 4th Friday of the month. And there's going to be a ton of artists, live music, free food and booze. We paint on the walls, and I think there's going to be a face painter, and we might have a balloon artist. And
wow.
It's just really big, wild, crazy art party.
Yeah.
And we'd be honored if you were able to show up.
Okay.
And I don't need a direct yes or no right now, because I know you said you might have a prior engagement, which is okay. We'll get you into another gallery in the future.
Yeah.
But we also do a raffle. And I ask all of the artists that I interview if there's something small that they wouldn't mind donating. And it's not a requirement or anything.
A piece of art?
Yeah. And
any of the guests that come in, they can donate $5 or more towards the Art Life video blog and the gallery. And if they do, they get a raffle ticket, and then we give away a ton of art at the end of the night.
Yeah.
A lot of fun. People get really excited about winning art from amazing, eclectic group of artists from around Portland.
Yeah, I'm sure.
In the surrounding area. We're in Vancouver. But yeah, it'd be really amazing to have you come.
Okay, that sounds fun.
Right on. Do you have, what are the best ways to get a hold of you?
Well, I have a Facebook page. It's H Couture Arts, and you can like my page and get to see a lot of the new work that I post on there. Also, Fine Art America under H Couture Arts again. There's a lot of different online ways to find me. Art Finder is one, and I'm a member of Trillium Gallery, which is also an online venue, and they produce a magazine, which I've been featured in.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And my website, which is www.hcouturearts.com, and I'm here locally, Hilarie Couture. You can find me in a lot of different places.
Right on. Do you have any last comments, questions, or concerns?
I'm just excited to be a part of this, and I appreciate you coming out to give me an opportunity
it's
to get out there.
It's such a pleasure to have met you and to interview you, really.
Too.
All right, thanks for tuning in, everybody. This is the Art Life video blog, day 123. We'll see you tomorrow. Whoop.